Okay, today we're going to solve problems using algebra. And I want you to pay close attention to these examples we're going to do together here in this video, because your assignment is going to be to create a bunch of questions like this and create your own algebra worksheet. In fact, these questions that we're going to do together are actually from a student from a couple of years ago. She made these questions up, and what our goal will be is for you to make up questions that I'll be able to use next year. So pay close attention to the type of questions these are, and then of course how to answer them. So our first example here talks about Papa Jack's Pizza. Claims to be way cheaper than his older brother's store, and maybe you figured out his older brother is Papa John. But this is Papa Jack's Pizza. They advertise get a large pizza for $10 plus $2 per topping. If C represents the cost of the pizza and T represents the number of toppings, then this deal can be represented by the equation C equals 2T plus 10, because you'll take the number of toppings, multiply it by 2, and our unknown is T. So take that and multiply it by 2, and that'll be the cost for your toppings, and then of course plus the regular flat rate of $10. So that's where this equation comes from. So we're going to use the equation to determine the cost of the pizza. The important part in this, and I'm going to just sort of highlight that, is use the equation, okay? This is a place for you to practice algebra. Um, I understand that many of us will be able to answer this question without algebra, but this is the purpose of this exercise, is to practice the algebra so that we, of course, can use the algebra in more complicated questions later on. So you'll see use the equation. You'll see it again here, use the equation. So let's make sure we use the equation. All right. So in the first example, we want to use the equation to determine the cost of the pizza with 3 toppings. So if there's 3 toppings, we're going to replace our unknown t with 3. And now we take our equation, c equals 2t plus 10, take the 3 and replace it with a 3, and instead of 2 times t now, it's 2 times 3, and of course 2 times 3 is 6, plus 10 gets us our $16. Again, I'm pretty confident all of you could figure out the cost of this pizza was going to be 16 bucks, but the point is to use the equation. So in this worksheet, you see I have a full solution here, and then you would be expected to do this one on your own. So let's do it together though. 6 toppings, so of course t would be 6. We'll use the equation, so the equation is c equals 2 times t plus 10, but t is 6, so it becomes 2 times 6 plus 10. Bedmath tells me I have to multiply first. 2 times 6 is 12, plus the $10 gets us the 22. And since the question is asked to you in words, we need to answer in words. The c equals 22 is a math statement. We need an English statement to finish it off. Just a simple, it cost $22 is fine. Okay, so that's one type of question that we can be asked with this equation. The other I call the opposite question. So this one is, here are the number of toppings, figure out the cost. This one is, here's the cost, figure out the number of toppings. So I call it the inverse, or the opposite question. But we're still going to use this equation. So c equals 2t plus 10. But now if the cost is 22, we know the c part, the cost, is 26. So the c becomes 26 equals 2t plus 10. Then we use our algebra that we've been practicing the last few days. We're going to subtract 10 from both sides because we're going to ignore the 10. That we know everyone pays the $10 for the large pizza. So of the 26 bucks, $10 goes away for that. That means the $16 left over is what is the cost for the number of toppings. 16 equals 2t. We know it's $2 per topping, so we're going to do the opposite operation and divide by 2, and we get 8 equals t, which of course means that there was 8 toppings. Remember, this is exactly like the cup math question that you've been watching videos of or seen me demonstrate in class. If we have 10 little squares left over and we have 2 cups, and we know that there was 26 squares in total, we know we can take the 10 squares away and know that underneath the cup there must be 16. And if they're evenly distributed, we divide by 2, and we get 8 squares under each cup. The same exact math. So I'm pretty confident now that you're going to be able to answer this one on your own. If the cost is 20, then C equals 20. Again, we're going to use the equation so that we write down the equation. We're going to put the 20 in here. That's the cost. Now we got to subtract the 10 from both sides and mean that there's $10 left over. That was the toppings. Divide both sides by 2, and T equals 5. And that means there must have been 5 toppings. As always, I'm stressing the form is really important, and we're practicing the form as much as we're practicing the math. And when you go off to do your own worksheet, you're going to be demonstrating the form in one of the answers. So you want to make sure you're very deliberate and proper with each step. And so that's something we're practicing here. All right, we're going to do a second question here. Melanie gets paid if she can get people to sign up for a fancy credit card called Master Visa Express. Each week, she earns $25 for every person she gets to sign up for the credit card, plus $70 for just showing up to work. So a lot of jobs are like this, where you're going to get a little bit of a salary, or not a salary, but a pay, plus some sort of commission thing. You'll get extra money if you sell more. So this is an example of that. Melanie's going to get $70 regardless if she sells anything, but she's going to be, she has the incentive to sell more, because the more she sells or gets people to sign up, she's going to make more money. So her earnings then is 25 times P, where P is the number of people she signs up. She gets 25 for each person she signs out, plus the $70 just flat rate. So you'll notice in the second example, we don't have any questions done for us. We have to do them all. So on your worksheet that you'll be doing, you'll need to do the same thing. Okay, so in this case, I wonder how much her earnings will be if she gets 15 people during this week to sign up. So that would mean that P equals 15. So the equation is 25 times P, but of course now it's 25 times 15, which is 375, plus the $70 just for showing up. And we know then that she must earn $445. And I'm going to go through these next ones relatively quickly so that we can get to the assignment. 12 people in a week. Her earnings then is 25 times 12. The P is replaced there. BEDMAS tells us we have to multiply before we add. So 25 times 12 is 300, plus the 70 gets us 370, and finish with a sentence. Now the opposite question, use the equation to determine the number of people she signed up if she earned this much. So instead of knowing how many people and figuring out her earnings, we know we have the number of people, or sorry, how much she earned, and we have to figure out the number of people. So this time we now know E. We know that E is 595. That's her earnings. So that is replaced in the equation. Just like if we were doing logically, we know she gets $70 just for showing up. So we're going to put that $70 aside and subtract that 70 from it. Our algebra suggests we have to do that anyways, which means we left with 525 equals 25 times P. And then, of course, we divide both sides by 25 to figure out how many people that was. And it must mean that 21 equals P, which means she signed up 21 people. This second part here, her earnings is now 520. So it's going to be something less than 21. Plug in the 520, subtract 70 from both sides. We get 450 left over, divide by 25, and this time she's earned 18. And so she has signed up 18 people. So, hopefully you've been able to practice this. Maybe you even did this before you watched the video to make sure that your math is right. But now your job is to create this worksheet yourself. So what I've done in Google Classroom, I have given you this worksheet exactly there, except it's blank. It's in Google. It's in a Google Doc, and you can edit it. You'll get your own copy, and your job now is to create two different questions, one for number one, and now, of course, one for number two, where they're different scenarios. Okay, I don't want you to just change the name of the pizza company and say it's Frank's Pizza and you're doing this. And really, I don't want to see any pizza examples and just change the numbers. I'd rather you think of something creative where you would have a new situation, but a similar thing where you have a flat rate and then something that changes. Okay, that's important that you're able to write an equation like this. I don't want to see a situation where you're doing like pizza toppings or ice cream toppings where you have one cost for another and another cost for another, another cost for another, and you have too many variables. You just have one thing that changes, an example, the number of toppings, and then a flat rate. Think of the fare question that we've been doing in class since the beginning of algebra. How many, it's a cost per ride plus an entrance fee to get in. Those are the types of questions that I want you to make up on your own. So you'll be able to actually go into the Google Doc and type over top of this stuff, delete what you need to, but leave the structure the same. Leave everything that looks the same, so I'll be able to recognize the worksheet that it'll look just like this. You'll have the first type of question here and the second type of question here. And I also want you to answer this first one and leave the second one blank. Do this first one and leave the second one blank. So again, you'll be able to go in and edit this, and if you'll just click on it, so maybe you've got a situation where it's $3 a ride or whatever, you'll be able to change this 2 to a 3, and if you'll have a different flat rate, you'll be able to change these numbers. But be very careful when you change them. Leave all the structure the same. You see how all the equal signs are lined up? So you should only be changing the numbers and maybe the letters, but everything else should be the same, and then you can even write the sentence underneath. That's even more important for this one, especially when you're doing the subtract 10 from both sides. Leave everything there. You can just type over top of it, okay? So that you can replicate a formula sheet just like this. And then go on to the second example, a brand new example, but don't answer any of them, okay? The point is for you to submit one that has all of these blank that I could use and just print out and hand out to someone else. The only spot that's answered is here and here. So just like this student here did, she took an old worksheet that I had given and changed it to this Melanie getting signed up for credit cards. Okay, and she changed this question to a pizza question. You're going to take these pizza questions and change them. Okay, so all of this is in Google Classroom. The instructions are there too, but that's your goal, is to complete this worksheet. Good luck, and I look forward to reading your awesome questions. Oh, before we sign off, I'm sorry. There's one thing I forgot that's really important. All right, you'll notice in this question, I had the cost was 26. And when we did the math, we got exactly 8 toppings. I want you to be very careful that the number you pick works. So for example, it is impossible to have $27 worth for the cost of this pizza. It's impossible. If you had $27, you subtract the 10, you'd have 17. 17 divided by 2 is 8.5. You can't have 8.5 toppings. So that question is unrealistic. It's impossible to have $27 as a cost. So you need to make sure when you make up this question and in the other one, here and here, that it actually makes sense. You might want to do the answer on the side to make sure that your answer is possible. That's one of the things I'll be looking for, that the question actually makes sense. Same with this. There's no way Melanie is going to earn $525. Math is not possible in this scenario. She's either going to earn 520 or she'll earn 545 because she sold one more. Okay? So make sure your questions all make sense. That's another important point. point of making this worksheet up. All right, now I think I'm safe to say goodbye and wish you good luck.